G'day, welcome to the Frugal Foodie channel. I'm the Frugal Foodie. Today we're going to be talking about making white bread using a bread machine. I'll be showing you my recipe that contains no expensive strong flours, no premixes, nothing artificial. It's delicious and I hope you'll enjoy making it. So we're going to need 300 mils of tepid water, 2 teaspoons of instant dried yeast, 3½ cups of plain flour, 2 dessertspoons of wheat and corn flour, ½ a teaspoon each of salt and sugar, and if you've got it as an extra, it's not essential, but if you've got a bread improver, ½ a teaspoon of that as well. If you don't have a bread improver, you can actually use about 1/4 of a vitamin C tablet, because a bread improver is just an ascorbic acid which helps the yeast's process and improves the texture of the bread. So it's not necessary, but it's kind of nice to have. So we're going to start by adding the wet ingredients first. In this case it's just water. And to that I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of yeast. Now this is actually instant yeast, there's no need to activate it in the water first, but I think it's a nice thing to do. Wake it up before the onslaught of the machine. Now I'm going to add my plain flour, that's 3½ cups of that. That's 1. And now I'm going to add 2 dessertspoons of wheat and corn flour. This gives ordinary plain flour more protein and therefore more strength. It emulates the strength of a baker's flour without having to pay a huge amount for it. So 2 dessertspoons of this to strengthen the bread. Now I'm going to add ½ a teaspoon of sugar. There we go. ½ a teaspoon of salt. You can add a bit more salt if you like a bit more flavour with your bread. I like my bread quite plain, so half is good for me. I think it's delicious. And ½ a teaspoon of the bread improver, or as I said before, 1/4 of a vitamin C tablet if you don't have a bread improver. And it will just kick along the yeast's process. Now something to bear in mind is it's important to keep the yeast and the salt away from each other, because salt actually will kill the yeast and you won't have a very high loaf. So that's why I put the yeast in with the water first, then the main part of the flour, and I put the salt on top essentially, just to keep them away from each other. So I'm going to set this for a dark loaf, and it's a standard basic bread, 2-pound loaf. And we're ready to go. And in about 3 hours time we'll have a lovely loaf of bread. It works out to about 55 cents a loaf and it's delicious. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Happy eating.